Welcome to the Supreme Grammar Podcast, where you'll learn to write like a Supreme Court Justice. With me, Jill Barton. Today, our AI hosts break down the rule and explanation sections of a persuasive document. The key is balance. Persuade your reader while staying true to the law. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're going deep on something I know every law student out there struggles with at some point. Writing those persuasive rule and explanation sections for legal documents.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you've got stacks of cases to get through and maybe a statute or two, and it can be so overwhelming trying to figure out where to even start.
It really can.
Yeah, and that's where this deep dive is going to help, hopefully. We're using the handbook for the new legal writer by Jill Barton and Rachel H. Smith.
Great book.
Yeah, it's got this fantastic step-by-step approach that just makes the whole process way less intimidating.
I think what's really cool about this book is it emphasizes the strategic thinking behind legal writing. So it's not just about knowing the law, but it's about how to present it in a way that persuades your reader.
Okay, so let's unpack that. First up, the rules section. How do we set the stage effectively?
Well, think of it like building a solid foundation for a house. You're going to start with the big picture. Constitutions, statutes, and then you narrow it down to case law. That hierarchy is key.
Okay, so why is that order so important? Couldn't we just dive right into the cases?
Well, imagine if you're trying to explain a really complex scientific concept, but you never defined any of the basic terms. It would be confusing, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's the same thing here. You have to guide the reader through that legal landscape, starting with those most fundamental principles first.
Okay, so if I'm arguing a First Amendment case, I would lead with the First Amendment itself, and then I would bring in the cases that support my interpretation of it.
Exactly, yeah. You're showing the reader that broader context before you focus on the specifics of your case.
Gotcha. Okay, now, how do we make sure that our rule statements are not only accurate, but also persuasive?
That's where your word choice becomes really crucial. Sometimes you'll quote directly from the law, especially with constitutions and statutes. Other times you'll paraphrase case law strategically.
Paraphrasing can be tricky, though. How do we make sure that we're not misrepresenting the law?
Accuracy and ethics are paramount. So you're not twisting the law, you're just framing it in a way that kind of highlights what's favorable for your client.
Okay, so it's kind of like choosing the right lighting to showcase, I don't know, a painting's best features.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, so we've laid that groundwork with our persuasive rule section. Now let's move on to the explanation section. What's the key to making this part really sing?
Think of the explanation section as a roadmap, guiding your reader through all the relevant case law, and each paragraph should flow smoothly into the next, building your argument as you go.
Okay, so I'm intrigued. How do we build that roadmap in the most effective way?
Well, first you'll want to categorize your cases. So you want to separate the ones with favorable outcomes from the ones that are less helpful to your argument. And you'll use both types of cases, but strategically.
Oh, interesting. So we're not ignoring those cases that maybe go against our point?
Not ignoring. You still have to address them, but you know you're going to emphasize the favorable ones. It's all about showcasing the strengths of your position while still acknowledging any potential challenges.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, how do we actually use these cases effectively within that explanation section?
Here's where the anchors come in. These are the key reasons why courts reach certain decisions in the cases that you're citing.
Right.
And these anchors are going to become the backbone of your explanation paragraphs.
So each paragraph is going to focus on one anchor, and then we would use multiple cases to kind of illustrate that anchor.
You got it. It's kind of like building a house, right? Each anchor is like a supporting beam.
Yeah.
Then the cases are the bricks and mortar holding it all together.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how this creates a really structured and persuasive argument.
Yeah.
How do we actually write these paragraphs, though, in a way that's clear and engaging?
This is where that CREAC framework comes in. And that stands for conclusion, rule, explanation, application, and conclusion. It's a really powerful tool for organizing your thoughts and presenting your arguments logically.
Oh, CREAC. I'm going to have to write that one down. I like that. This is already making the whole writing process seem a lot less daunting, like we've gone from a blank canvas to a clear blueprint. So what's next on our roadmap?
Well, next, we're going to go even deeper into the CREAC framework and break down each of those elements so you can really master it. Let's unpack that CREAC framework a little bit more and see how it can help you make those explanation paragraphs really shine.
Okay, yeah, I'm excited to learn more about it. CREAC.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be a real game changer for my writing.
Oh, yeah, it can be super helpful. So just remember, each paragraph in your explanation section focuses on a single anchor, right?
Right.
What we talked about before. That's one of the key reasons why courts ruled in a certain way.
And then the CREAC method is going to help you present all of that information clearly and persuasively.
Okay, so walk me through it. What does each letter in CREAC stand for?
All right, so it stands for conclusion, rule, explanation, application, and conclusion.
Okay.
So you start with a concluding sentence that summed up the point you're making. Then you state the legal rule that's related to that anchor.
Gotcha.
And then comes the explanation part. And this is where you're going to provide the details and the reasoning behind that rule.
Okay.
And you'll often be drawing on case law to do that.
Okay, so we're not just stating the rule, we're really kind of digging into the why behind it.
Exactly. That's where your case analysis comes in. And this is where you'll use the facts, holdings, and reasoning from relevant cases to illustrate and support that rule you just laid out.
I see.
It's like providing the evidence for your legal argument.
Makes sense. So what about the application part? Is that where we connect the rule to our specific facts in our case? So you'll analyze how that rule that you just stated applies to the specific facts of your case, highlighting similarities to precedents that were favorable, and then distinguishing your client's case from any unfavorable ones.
Okay, so it's all about drawing those connections and distinctions
Exactly.
to make our argument stronger.
Yeah, and then finally you end with another concluding sentence,
Okay.
just to drive home the point you're making and transition smoothly to your next paragraph.
This is so helpful. This framework is really helpful for breaking down what can feel like these really complex legal arguments into more manageable chunks.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's a great organizational tool.
Now, are there any other techniques we can use alongside this framework to really make our explanation section even more persuasive?
Yeah, absolutely. One technique that you can use to elevate your writing is something called signals.
Signals, what are those?
Okay, so think of signals like those little road signs for your reader.
Okay.
They're going to indicate how the cases you're citing actually support the argument you're making. Some common signals are C, C also, and then C, G.
So instead of just like listing a bunch of cases, we're using these signals to show the reader exactly how each of these cases relates to our point.
Exactly, yeah. So for example, C is going to indicate direct support for what you just said, whereas C also might suggest additional support or a slightly different nuance.
Okay, so it adds that extra layer of clarity.
Yeah, it helps you guide the reader and show them how you're putting it all together.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of like we're giving them a guided tour through the legal landscape, highlighting the important landmarks along the way.
Exactly. And then another tool that you can use is something called parentheticals, and those go right within your citations.
Parentheticals, what are those?
So parentheticals provide a really concise explanation of the case you're citing right there in the citation itself.
Oh, interesting.
So you might write something like, Smith v. Jones, holding that manufacturers have a duty to warn consumers about foreseeable dangers.
Oh, I see. So instead of making the reader go and look up the Smith versus Jones case, we're giving them that little summary right there.
Exactly. Yeah, so parentheticals save you space, they show that you really understand the case law, and they just make your writing a lot more efficient.
I love those.
Yeah, for sure. But even with all of these tools, it's important to avoid something called serial case briefing.
Serial case briefing, what's that?
So that's when you're presenting your explanation as a bunch of mini case briefs, just summarizing each case individually without really connecting them to the bigger argument you're making.
So instead of using cases to really support those anchors that we talked about, we're just kind of like listing them one after the other.
Exactly. It's kind of like reading a phone book instead of a compelling story, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You want to synthesize the cases, weave them together to create this cohesive narrative that's leading your reader towards your ultimate conclusion.
I see. It's about quality over quantity.
Yes, exactly. Each case should have a very specific purpose. It should be supporting an anchor point and contributing to that overall flow of your argument.
This has been so helpful. I feel like we've really deconstructed the art of writing a persuasive explanation section.
Well, hopefully you're starting to feel more confident about tackling those sections in your own writing.
I am. Are there any other, key points or things that we should keep in mind?
Yeah, definitely. So one important principle to remember is the power of primacy and recency.
Primacy and recency. Those sound familiar, but can you remind me what they mean exactly?
Yeah, so primacy refers to the idea that people tend to remember the first things that they read or hear.
Okay.
And then recency means that they also tend to remember the last things.
Okay, so we can use that to our advantage.
You can. So when you're writing, think about placing your strongest arguments at the beginning and end of your paragraphs and sections.
So start strong and end strong.
Exactly. It's kind of like framing a beautiful picture. You want that strong opening and that powerful closing statement that's going to really stick with your reader.
That makes a lot of sense. What about, we talked about having all these different cases. What about those really important, like, landmark cases, the ones that are just crucial to our argument? Should we treat those differently?
Definitely. So sometimes you're going to have a case that's so central to the legal issue you're dealing with that it warrants its own separate paragraph or even its own section.
Oh, wow.
And the handbook refers to this as a single case illustration.
So it's like giving that case the spotlight.
Exactly.
And really taking the time to dig into the specifics of it.
Yeah. And you'll want to be really accurate when you're presenting this case, even if the outcome wasn't completely in your client's favor.
Oh, that's interesting. So we're not shying away from the challenges.
Nope, you're going to address them head on. And even in cases that might not have gone your way, you can often find those anchor points or specific facts that you can use to distinguish your client's situation or emphasize points that support your argument.
Right. Okay, so we're really kind of dissecting that case and figuring out what works for us.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you're a legal detective, right? Carefully examining the evidence.
I like that.
To build your case.
This is really starting to click for me.
Okay.
I love the idea that we're not just throwing these cases at a wall and hoping that they stick.
Right. It's all about being strategic and choosing the right cases for the right purpose.
Okay, so before we move on, are there any other tips or strategies you could share that would help us really nail these rule and explanation sections?
There are. So let's talk about some common pitfalls first, just so you can avoid them. One of the biggest mistakes new legal writers make is forgetting to cite every single legal proposition.
Oh, so no unsupported claims?
None. Everything needs to be backed up. Every statement you make about the law needs a citation to a relevant source. So like a statute or a case or something like that.
Exactly. It's like showing your work in math class,
Yeah, I see that.
You have to prove how you got to that answer. And of course, make sure those citations are all in proper Blue Book form.
Oh, absolutely. Accuracy is key.
Yes. And, legal writing, it's a skill that takes time and practice to develop. Don't beat yourself up if your first drafts aren't perfect. Just keep practicing, revising, getting feedback, and it will start to feel a lot easier.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And one more thing, always remember who you're writing for.
Okay.
You're not just writing for yourself. You're writing for a judge or a panel of judges, maybe a law clerk. You want to make sure your writing is clear, concise, and persuasive to that audience.
Especially because they're reading through so many of these documents.
Yes. Make their job easier by presenting a well-organized, compelling argument.
It's like we're building a bridge, right? Like between the law and our client's desired outcome.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, the foundation of that bridge is your well-crafted rule section. Okay.
And then the road that leads across that bridge is your persuasive explanation section.
This has been so insightful.
I'm glad you found it helpful.
I feel like I'm walking away with like a whole new toolkit.
Awesome.
To make my writing stronger.
Right.
So to our listeners out there, we encourage you to take everything we talked about today and put it into practice.
Yes. The more you write, the more confident you'll become.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.
Happy writing, everybody.
By presenting a well-organized and compelling rule and explanation section, you make the judge's job easier and your argument stronger. You'll find more strategies in chapters 27 and 28 of the Handbook for the New Legal Writer. And don't miss the checklist on page 206. And always remember, you can be a great legal writer.